So the April's jobs report is bad news for the mainstream media and great news for President Trump. He also moved to officially defund NPR and PBS, and Democrats are continuing to melt down over Mike Waltz being reassigned.
All right, breaking moments ago, the April jobs report just released showing steady gains amid some economic uncertainty. I want to bring in CNN's Matt Egan, who joins me now with more. All right, what are we seeing in the numbers? What is the context here?
Yeah, Omar, we were bracing for a slowdown in the jobs market. We did not get that. We got steady hiring. This jobs market is just relentless. Let me run you through the key numbers.
Yeah, let's do it.
177,000 jobs were added in the month of April. That easily beat forecasts for 135,000. So not even close there. The unemployment rate stayed low. It stayed at 4.2%. When we look at where the jobs are right now, we're seeing solid gains in a number of places. Accommodation and food services, right? Restaurants, hotels, hospitals, healthcare, private education, all of them adding jobs.
Now, there are three sides to this announcement: what the numbers are actually saying, what the Trump administration is saying, and what mainstream media and Democrats want you to believe. Now, in regards to the numbers, we've been averaging 158,000 jobs added for the past 12 months. That totals out to being 1.9 million jobs added. So given all the doom and gloom, that means the economy is resilient. People are still waking up, clocking in, and they're able to find work. That's the bottom line here. Now, in regards to the Trump administration, this validates their strategy on how they plan to grow the economy. However, in regards to Democrats, believe that the reduction of the federal employee workforce is detrimental to the economy. And they don't think that the jobs report is really optimistic. It's actually a smokescreen. Now, I'm going to show you exactly what they're saying by playing you this clip here. Take a listen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is something they can point to. Of course, all this is the same roughly kind of job growth we saw under Biden, which they said was terrible and ruinous and disastrous. So, you know, they're going to spin it. They'll talk about how great it is. It doesn't necessarily tell us where things will go in a month or 2 months if these tariffs really do go into effect. And it's also interesting, you know, we don't know yet the full impact of all of these layoffs or, you know, attempts to lay off these thousands and thousands of federal government workers, the spin-off effects that's going to have on the economy in different parts of the country, particularly even red states where there are actually government workers who are affected.
Okay, let's just remove the spin from what he said. It is true that there is a level of uncertainty as how tariffs will impact the economy long term. Obviously, it's cause and effect, and we have to see that play out. Fine. But saying that we don't know how federal workers who've been laid off and how that might impact the economy in a negative way, now that is a spin. That's false. And let me explain to you why. When people are getting let go from federal workforce, they're just going to go get hired in the private sector. Now, this leads to my overall point in this first story, that Democrats are suffering a blow here because the entire narrative for mainstream media and Democrats is it's all doom and gloom. And that's why Fox Business is actually pushing back on that narrative. Take a listen.
436,000 increase in the number of people who are employed. So this is an amazing report. The number of people, the labor force participation rate rose. So this is a really strong number. I wanted to mention one other quick thing. You know, about 2 weeks ago, every headline, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, was, oh, the stock market is crashing. And since then, the market has been up, what, like 2,800 points.
Yeah,
so,
well, you don't see that
by the way, I don't see headlines about that.
That was the point, that Scott Bessent made. Yeah, Scott Bessent made the same point yesterday. That, you know,
exactly, he made that point.
This is why I like showing you guys both sides, because it's easy to get wrapped up in the emotions and the moment from mainstream media. I mean, they're really effective at scaring the heck out of people. There's no question about it, especially with this whole Republicans are going to cut Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security nonsense, but there's no receipts to actually back it up. Bottom line here, folks, is that this is great news. It proves that it's not all doom and gloom. And yes, there is uncertainty in regards to tariffs, but that doesn't mean you should be losing sleep at night. Now, in breaking news, Fox News continues to pile on to Mr. Garcia, the illegal alien deported to El Salvador. They now have the audio tape of the wife begging the judge to give her a protection order against her own husband. Take a listen.
Audio from 2020 was obtained by USA Today. Abrego Garcia's wife pleaded with a judge for protection from her own husband. A warning, the audio is difficult for some younger viewers especially to hear. Watch and listen.
He grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. I have pictures of the evidence, like all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me like around like 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and like hit me. He slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
His wife responded to the audio with the statement, "My husband was traumatized from the time he spent in ICE detention, and we were in the throes of COVID. Like many couples, we were caring for our children with barely enough to get by. All of those factors contributed to the actions which caused me to seek the protective order."
Now, how much you want to bet that someone wrote that statement for her? She doesn't actually speak that way, probably doesn't even think that way. Just for the record, you have to understand that there are nonprofit far-left groups who fund everything to protect illegal aliens. Whether they believe it's justified or not doesn't matter. It's the current reality in our country. So I'm not buying the statement from her. Again, this is another blow to Democrats, and this is why they have gone silent when it came to Mr. Garcia. Notice we haven't heard any of them speak on this man for probably the last few days now. And now we are going to go to the continued fallout from Mike Waltz, the former national security advisor who was fired from his position and then hours later promoted to UN ambassador, even though he's not been confirmed by the Senate. So we'll see what happens there. But Democrats still have something to say about it. And here is an example, Congressman Swalwell showing you what hypocrisy truly looks like. Take a listen.
Different thing happening. Mike Waltz, former colleague of yours, he is now out. The president wants him to be the next UN ambassador. What do you think of this? You can present it as two things, right? Chaos and disaster, or Donald Trump's trying to clean up shop. What is it?
Well, it was chaos and incompetence that made Americans know the name Mike Waltz, right? He put national security secrets in a group chat. He
so do you think
national
it's good?
Secrets.
Do you think it's good that he's out?
Yes, but when you are incompetent, you don't move someone down the ladder, you lead them off the ladder. So he should not have the important job of UN ambassador. Most people in the military or national security who did what Mike Waltz did would be surrounded by lead walls. They wouldn't be getting another job in the government.
Now, before I react to Congressman Swalwell, a couple announcements here. If you have been getting value from our channel, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. In the description below, you can also donate to the work that we do by buying us a cup of coffee. Also, we are now on Spotify and Apple, so if you want to follow us on those platforms as well, please subscribe there. Now, the congressman is correct. If I was still serving in the military and I did something of that nature, I know I would have been reprimanded, possibly demoted, no question, or even reassigned. This congressman is facing the problem of pure hypocrisy. I mean, it wasn't too long ago he was caught having sexual relations with a Chinese spy. And that's not me being partisan. That's actually what happened. But he was never held accountable. And here's MSNBC giving their 2 cents about Mike Waltz being nominated as a UN ambassador.
So it's even deeper and weirder than just NATO. What we're seeing is a kind of patrimonialist, a paternalist administration where only one person makes decisions. Trump decides, Trump takes away, Trump wakes up one morning and he says mean things about Putin, and he wakes up the next morning and changes his mind. And that's very, very hard for American allies, for American partners, for American trading partners to understand and to be able to plan. They don't have anybody to talk to in this administration. They're not sure when they speak to somebody at the National Security Council, are they speaking to someone who represents the president? When they talk to someone at the State Department, is it someone who represents the president? Even the fact that Marco Rubio is now Secretary of State, acting National Security Advisor. He's also acting head of USAID, and I believe he's still acting head of the National Archives.
Yes, 4 jobs. That's right.
That's right. So that's not a good sign. It means that none of these institutions is being properly run or properly taken seriously, or his real leadership. And that's confusing for anyone who's trying to plan a strategy, who's trying to understand how to talk to the United States, how to understand what our trade policy is, our NATO policy, our military policy.
Yeah, so this journalist from The Atlantic is getting ahead of herself. Clearly, this is a temporary position for Marco Rubio. President Trump will appoint someone to be the national security advisor permanently. So let's hold our horses here. Now let's go to our next story, which is breaking news. President Trump has officially moved to defund PBS and NPR. Take a listen.
After months of threats, President Trump has now signed an executive order to end federal funding for NPR and PBS. The president arguing the public funding of media is outdated and calls these networks woke propaganda disguised as news. NPR and PBS receive roughly $500 million in public funds from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a nonprofit that was created by Congress over 50 years ago to guarantee all Americans have access to public radio and TV. This order could still be challenged in court. We'll keep you posted.
Now, the White House published a full article with links and supporting documentation to prove why this is a good move. And they give example after example of how NPR and PBS, it's not even news anymore, okay? It's propaganda. And I'll just show you a couple of examples here. In 2021, NPR declared the Declaration of Independence to be a document with flaws and deeply ingrained hypocrisies. Here's another one. NPR apologized for calling illegal immigrants illegal. Okay. Another one. NPR featured a Valentine's Day story centered around queer animals, in which it suggested that make-believe clownfish in Finding Nemo would have been better off as a female, and that some deer are actually non-binary. In 2021, a PBS station aired, quote, a children's program that featured a drag queen named Little Miss Hot Mess. And of course, the CEO of NPR once called President Trump a racist and shared a photo of herself wearing a Biden for President campaign hat, serves on the board of a Soros-funded activist group, and described, quote, reverence for the truth as a distraction.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting received $535 million in federal dollars for their current fiscal year, but only a small portion of PBS and NPR's budgets actually comes from Congress. Most of their funding comes from donors and sponsors. Now, back in March, the future of public broadcasting, you'll remember, took center stage on Capitol Hill at a DOJ hearing.
Our job at PBS is to support our stations so that local stations can serve their communities.
NPR and PBS have increasingly become radical left-wing echo chambers.
Now, if you heard there at the beginning of the clip, they only receive a small percentage from the federal government in the amount of $500 million. Now, if you ask me, that is not a small amount. Now, given the full budget of the federal government, you could argue that might be peanuts, but that's not the point. It's about the principle. Taxpayers should have a say on where the money is going. Now, we're going to get into whether President Trump can do this legally, but let's just prove his premise that PBS and NPR are definitely left-wing driven. Now, according to allsides.com, you could see here that NPR is more opinion-based and they lean left. They're not in the center. And according to the Media Research Center, PBS is very biased, especially when it came to the election. And here's the actual numbers to back it up. Coverage of the RNC came in at 72% negative. Coverage of the DNC came in at 88% positive. And this leads us to the question that I think matters most is, does President Trump have the authority to cut federal funding from PBS and NPR? Well, according to CNN, he does not.
What do we make of this?
I brought props with you
I
today,
love a
Deanna.
prop.
I went ahead and read the entire law for you, the 1967 Public Broadcasting Act. There is nothing in this law that gives any president the ability to strip away the funding for PBS and NPR. Congress was really specific back 50 plus years ago. They wanted to create an entity that was free of government control. They wanted to make sure no president could ever pressure PBS or NPR. So this is going to be a legal fight, like so many others that we've seen. And I suspect President Trump probably wants it that way.
He definitely does.
Look at the statement that we've received this morning from the head of PBS, Paula Kruger. She says this is a blatantly unlawful move overnight by President Trump. She says this is going to hurt people around the country because it threatens our ability to serve the American public with educational programming. The lie at the end is key. We are currently exploring all options to allow PBS to continue. NPR is saying the exact same thing.
Now, he might be right in saying that Congress wanted to make sure that NPR and PBS was not controlled by the federal government, but clearly they were not able to compensate or predict where we are today in our society. Majority of these government officials, their spouses, their business associates, their colleagues, family members serve on the board of a lot of these independent organizations and nonprofits who donate directly to NPR and PBS. So even though they don't have direct control in their official capacities within the federal government, they technically have indirect control through these nonprofit organizations who are donating money. And when you are slave to the money, you're going to do exactly what they want you to do. That's the bottom line here. And when the CEO of NPR testified on Capitol Hill, she was asked a very simple question. Is NPR biased? Take a look at her answer.
Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions, no.
In the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
Look, anyone who's ever listened to NPR or PBS knows that obviously it has an agenda. Obviously, it falls on one side of the aisle. The president's put this out here. I think this gets back to what you were just talking about, though, is that there's probably going to be lawsuits over this. And the real way, if you want to make a lot of this go away and go away in a way that makes it much harder to bring it back, is that you've got to do it through Congress.
Yeah, so she just dropped the C word there, which is Congress. Do they actually have the backbone, the fortitude to back up what Doge, Elon Musk, and President Trump really wants to do, which is to cut a lot of the wasteful spending out of the federal government? Now, one side believes this isn't going to really make a difference because we keep borrowing trillions of dollars. Okay, but the other side says we at least need to make a legitimate effort to prove to the taxpayer that we are trying to manage their money properly. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to Congress. They are the ones who decide on how much money is going to be appropriated. And so now I want to get your reaction to the jobs report that came out this morning. The fact that President Trump is officially looking to defund NPR and PBS. The audio tape of Mr. Garcia's wife pleading with the judge to issue a protection order against him because he was beating on her, allegedly. And let's not forget Congressman Swalwell's hypocrisy. Put all your comments and reaction and thoughts in the comment section below. Now, last night, President Trump spoke at the University of Alabama and left everybody shocked with an amazing message. And Fox News also released the body cam footage of Mr. Garcia being pulled over by law enforcement that proves the claim that he is a human trafficker. If you missed out on both of those stories, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.